Okay, gentlemen, a question. I've always been fascinated with the ad campaigns for movies. Now, a few years ago, there was a hockey movie called Youngblood, and if you saw the ads for the film, or the print ads, you would never have gotten the idea it was a hockey movie because no hockey shots were included. How much debate was there about this movie and about the poster for the film?
There was a fair amount of discussion about it. They always show you a bunch of different ideas for it, but we always wanted something that would capture the setting and the spirit that's a fairly innocent but kind of epic feeling world. I mean, I was always intrigued by the world of this sort of frozen, lakes and snow-capped mountains, and I wanted something in the poster that got a sense of the town and the sense of the spirit for hockey, but in this weird world of ice and snow.
Well, David, here in California, I mean, I love hockey, you love hockey, but was it a bit of the reception you got when you pitched the idea a little less enthusiastic initially than you might have imagined?
Actually, no. Fox, I had a first look deal at Fox Studios, and their reaction was a little tepid, but it was sort of analytical, and it was that they didn't know if it had any foreign appeal. I guess because they didn't know how hockey would translate to the outside world. But then Disney pretty much pounced on it. They were very excited about it. Maybe they were still caught up in the euphoria of the Mighty Ducks. Which euphoria I think has waned in the last month or two. But no, the response to the script was pretty enthusiastic from the beginning, which, is always a sign, and you never know whether it's a good one or a bad one until the whole thing is over.
I love cameo roles in movies, and Mike Myers, the combination of Howie Meeker and a bunch of other broadcasters was amazing, the audience reaction. How enthusiastically did he attack that part?
Mike embraced it full force. I've always seen Mike as kind of the ambassador of hockey. For me, he has been, because I didn't know that much about hockey when I was growing up, and Mike is such a diehard hockey fan. And he's actually has the second forward behind Wayne Gretzky in the book called Hockey for Dummies. I mean, that's how much people see him as a guy who can sort of speak for hockey. But when we were talking about this character, he had a lot of old sportscasters in mind who had been ex-hockey players, and he worked carefully on the wig and the broken nose and the accent. He sort of tried it out for me and workshopped it, and I was cracking up. So he really enjoyed it, and it was such a great thing to have him in the film, because when he comes on the screen, people acknowledge both the hockey connection and the great performer that he is.
I think we all grew up watching Burt Reynolds movies, and to have him in this film, a really nice piece of casting. Now, what was the reaction to the people in the town when he was on the set and the other cast members?
Burt has a kind of presence and stature that he carries with him pretty much everywhere he goes, and people tend to kind of just pay a little closer attention and become a little more childlike around him. He's a very fatherly figure and a kind of a coach type attitude too. I mean, he played football in Florida, and he's a tough guy. And when he sort of speaks, he speaks with power, and people respected him. But after they get to know him, he's really quite friendly, and he loves to talk to people, off the set. A lot of people from Canmore came up to him and got to know him throughout the shooting, and he was great to have around.
Well, a question about the hockey scenes. Hockey is a very competitive game, even when you're playing backyard hockey, but on some of the action scenes, did some of the players get a little over enthusiastic?
Some of the guys did. We had real players, guys who'd played in junior leagues and ex-NHL and IHL, and they were, some of them took it really seriously. The guys who were playing the Rangers kind of had a thing to prove that, we're not just going to let movie stars push us around on the ice. So they would give them a few extra pokes and shots here and there, and knock them over when they had a chance. And the actors stayed on their toes because of that, and it increased the sort of authenticity of the whole thing.
David, a couple of questions for you. I've always been interested in movie titles. How much discussion have you experienced over your movies or TV shows over titles? I'm thinking Lake Placid and Mystery Alaska. What kind of discussions were about what the movie should be called?
There were really none on Lake Placid. That was the original title, and we never wavered from that. In Mystery Alaska, the original title was called The Game, which kind of embodied the
Ken Dryden
feeling
book,
that
yeah.
this is the game, the sport, to try and capture the passion of those who play it. And also referencing to the Saturday game, which is one of the components of this movie. The kids in this town grow up wanting to play on this special game on Saturdays where the 8, 10 best players in the town get to play in front of the rest of the community. We lost that title to Michael Douglas when he came out with a movie called The Game about a year ago. Then that opened up the door for, well, what about this, what about that? And it did go back and forth. But ultimately, I think everyone sort of agreed Mystery Alaska was the best.
Yep. And the last question, on a humorous note, I'm just wondering, in your position in Hollywood, how often do you get spontaneous auditions from aspiring actors if you're out in a restaurant or getting your car parked? Do you ever come across that from actors looking for parts?
No. I'm not a casting director. I've never been confused for one. And fortunately, I do not get recognized that much. So most of the valets just are hoping that they can convince me it wasn't they who scratched the car. And the waiters are happy with a good tip without a roll.